And now we'd like to talk about expectation setting. And the inspiration for this segment was actually a post I saw. We'll give him some kudos here. Doug Bradley at Everest Legal Marketing posted a case study. We should actually another time talk about case studies in general, but it ties into the expectation setting. And what Doug was sharing, and we'll try to put this in the show notes, is basically, I'll just quote what he said. If you ever heard an SEO company say that you should have no expectations for the first few months of a campaign, they're wrong. And I don't want to speak for you, Conrad. I agree with Doug. Setting no expectations is terrible. But it got into a conversation about, part of the conversation at least, is how long should SEO take? So how long do you think SEO should take, Conrad? You're an SEO.
So it can work very quickly. And I will tell you that, and I do really believe this. And by the way, I have been, I don't want to say guilty of, but I've certainly parroted the SEO takes a long time mantra. And the reason, and like, it's just kind of, it just becomes part of what you talk about. But when Bradley posted that, it brought to mind a couple of very recent, very dramatic wins that we had. And I was like, this was not a long-term win. It was a short-term, make some changes and dramatically you see some improvements. And so there's that fact. The next piece that came about to me was the vast majority, the reason the SEO takes a long time mantra came up was twofold. One, if you're starting from scratch, it does. And two, and this is a self-serving thing, I think agencies like to say that because it encourages them, or at least gives them an excuse to throw their clients into these long-term contracts. But the reality is that second thing hasn't changed. Agencies still like their long-term contracts, right? Which I think is a bad idea on the lawyer side. But the first part has, for the most part, changed. For many of the listeners to this podcast, this has changed. You have a lot of assets. You're not starting from scratch. You have a bunch of content. You have your technology. You have your website. You've done a lot of this already. You've been at it. And so a lot of the gains that you can see, in my opinion, can be realized by doing what we used to call janitorial SEO, which is basically cleaning up mistakes and disasters. And another way of putting this is a lot of you have beginner to intermediate level approach to your SEO. And if you can bring some really deep understanding and some really good analysis and some really good industry expertise to bear, you can actually make a massive change, right? And so I think for me, I'm going to tepidly remove the SEO takes a long time from my vocabulary because in many cases it doesn't.
So I am you parsed that well. I think you alluded to this as well, but here's my thing. It depends. Number one, you know what number one it depends on? What is your goal? Like when you say SEO takes long, what do you mean? And let's use Doug's example, right? So a lot can be done in the first 90 days of a campaign. For 30 competitive search phrases, the client had an average position of 98.5, page 10, 90 days ago. Today it's 24. That might not sound impressive, but those phrases are on page 1 of Google, 9 are on page 2, and the remainder are on pages 3 to 6. So let me just, no offense to Doug.
No, hit it. And this is exactly why the problem, yeah, you're exactly right. Keep going.
Page
Doug
2?
won't be offended.
Page 2? Page
you went
3?
from 98 to page 2. Merry Christmas,
okay,
right?
now organic traffic has quintupled. Okay, great. Relevant organic traffic? Right? Yeah. I always remember this firm we worked with. They did a post on the Detroit Lions, and they ranked for Detroit Lions. They were getting traffic for all these queries on Detroit Lions. Traffic was through the quintupled. Forget about quintupled. It was 100x. I don't know, something insane. Who cares? Maybe you can retarget those visitors. So my whole thing is, I agree with Doug. No expectations, terrible. And that, to your point, that is what's going on a lot. People say, you can have no expectations. How long is this going to take? Who knows? It's going to take forever. No, that's not good. But I'll give you the other end of that coin, which we've talked about before. I guarantee you rank for personal injury lawyer in Chicago in 1 week. So I would consider that a fraudulent expectation set. That's not good either. And even if they could, some of these guys talk about this all the time. Let's see how long that sticks, because whatever they're doing is probably something that Google's trying to reduce the impact of. And then the third one is meaningless expectations, right? So people start talking about, well, you'll get, whether it's just traffic, raw traffic number, who cares? Average positions, rankings, honestly, who cares? You don't pay your bills with rankings.
It's a good hit on the rankings, right? It's a good it's a good hit on why rankings are. I don't think we've done a segment on this, but why rankings are particularly unhelpful. Yeah. Especially if we're not talking about what we're ranking for, right?
Right. And to your point that I totally agree with is that there are things that you can do that can have massively valuable impacts in a very short period of time. Just for folks that aren't very sophisticated in this, the obvious one is this. You got a huge website that's been, you put a disallow in your robots TXT file to de-index the entire site. Well, you take that out, you're going to see a massive change pretty fast.
Right.
But anyway,
maybe, right?
Yeah,
probably.
Right. Well, and lawyers should know this, right? I mean, come on. How many do people come to your firm and you're like, yeah, I know this. How long is your case going to take? Or how long is my case going to take? Oh, 30 days, no problem. Now, maybe there are some examples where you know it, right? But complex PI case, you don't know. You don't know the schedule, pre-scheduling order, all this stuff. You don't know how long it's going to take. So, you got to set expectations. Now, and I actually wrote about this. We'll make sure I put the show notes in. If Doug if his expectation setting was, hey, we've done a quick audit of your site. There's a lot of opportunity for us to fix stuff that we think is going to have a meaningful impact in 90 days. That's a great way to set expectations. He's basing it on his experience and he's looked at the site. All good stuff. But anyway, my whole thing is that it depends, and people, and really my pushback is anybody that's just whether they're guaranteeing rankings or they're saying it takes a long time with nothing more. Those are both bad expectation setting, just like it would be bad expectation to set those expectations in the context of a law practice. So anyway, I hope that folks makes sense to people.
I just find that most of the time, in my experience, when you have a firm who has been at it for a while, who has been thinking about SEO for more than 3 years and investing in SEO, most of the time that I get a prospect that looks like that, they have done something, and by most of the time, I mean 9 times out of 10, they have done or are doing something that's so stupid that you can make a dramatic improvement in a short period of time. And I will use content as an example. And let me use content as a way where this gets the length of time argument is often made. Oh, you need a lot of content for long tail queries, right? You need to blog. And it's going to take, we're going to write 7 blogs a month for the next 50 months and your SEO is going to grow over time, right? That is a classic SEO takes time argument, and it's wrong. It's bullshit and it's wrong. And I'll tell you why. And what we can do, it's not just we, it's what you can do. What anyone can do is look at your overall content and realize if you've been taking that long-term, long-tail approach, you have probably screwed up royally when it comes to SEO best practices. And your content strategy is completely wrong. And you fix the content strategy and you can see a marked improvement in dealing with all of your legacy garbage content that you've been waiting all this time for to finally to actually do anything and actually start seeing really real results. Now, that's content specifically, but I see that over and over again. There are numerous issues with technical implementations that you can see and make dramatic. I mean, you use the no index as an example, but that's not the only one out there. Local is royally mishandled in many, many cases, right? And so to me, 9 times out of 10, if you have been working on this for 3 or 4 years or longer, you've probably screwed something up royally that no one has really looked for. The new PI firm that's starting in Chicago, it's a long time. And it's so long, my expectation setting there would be don't bother.
You'd be
right? Like
open an ads account up.
Yeah. Do you say that? Do you have that conversation a lot?
We do.
Like, we're going to be the next big thing in Chicago personal injury. Gyi, what should we do?
That's the thing. That's my thing about, because this is the other, we talked about this a little bit, but when we say SEO takes time to do what? Takes time to generate a certain number of new cases, takes time to realize a return on investment, takes time to hit a target cost per intake qualified lead, or to hit a target cost per consultation. That's what I care about, right? I don't care about like how long does SEO take to get more traffic. I don't care about how long SEO takes to get some improved rankings, right? It's got to be how many companies are you know, if you're asking this question, whether you're asking of your in-house marketing team or you're asking your agency, ask them to forecast and benchmark consultations or clients.
Yeah.
Right? Because now because I'll bet you.
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
How many agencies will do that?
No one.
None.
Right.
Yeah. None.
I know.
So
that's the most important question.
This is why
though.
agencies are so bad.
That's the most important question.
We have no friends
and that's why all this stuff about like time and blah blah blah. It's only meaningful. And guess what? You know who does do that? Paid search agencies. They benchmark and forecast against, and you know, you can argue that they have more reliable data. And again, I'm not, you know, I'm own an SEO agency, and I will say that we have to educate and qualify about the modeling and the forecasting. But that's the point. You have to, if you want to have a good experience with this, you have to set good expectations. You have to have these conversations, because otherwise, no matter what you do, I don't care how much content you fix and improve rankings and improve traffic, until you can month in, month out, demonstrate the value of what you're doing to some objective business metric, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Question for you.
Yeah.
You said you own an SEO agency. You do a lot more than SEO, right?
I like to think so, but yes.
Okay. So, and the reason I make this, I make this point, and I've rubbed people the wrong way on this, but if you are an SEO agency, it's really hard to be strategic about your marketing because you don't know the business metrics of all the other things. And the whole concept around strategy, I've become an increasingly big believer in this. If you are a one-trick pony, and you may be the best tactical SEO out there, but SEO might not be the right answer. And so it's really, really hard to be strategic.
Right.
And by strategic, I'm talking about what resources do we apply to which marketing channels to achieve the business objectives of a law firm. You cannot be strategic if you don't understand the whole table.
When you're a hammer, everything's a nail.
When you're a hammer, everything's a nail. And you can't be a strategic hammer. You can't be a strategic hammer. But we are absolutely blowing our metaphors here. But my point is, SEO takes a long time, and that may or may not be the case. But you also need to look at all the other things else that are out there to determine whether SEO is or is not the right answer for reaching your business objectives. And it isn't always. And by the way, my personal passion and love goes back to SEO. Like that's how I got into legal marketing. It's just not appropriate for all of our clients.
Money makes a it makes a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round.